good evening, and thank you for watching AiArthritis News. I'm Phaedra Schifano. Tonight's update is part of our Go With Us series as we attend scientific conferences from around the globe. And what better way to start than by attending 2023's European Alliance of Associations for Rheumatology, aka EULAR. Over the next few days, we'll be joined by our hosts, Tiffany Westrich-Robertson, Deb Constien, and Eileen Davidson, as they navigate these sessions for us live in Milan, Italy. So please, sit back and enjoy today's updates from EULAR 2023.
Hello there, this is Tiffany Westrich-Robertson, the CEO of AiArthritis, a person living with non-radiographic axSpA. You've seen her look around here. Oh, there's Deb. Hi, Deb. Giving her report. And we're going to be meeting back up with Eileen in a minute, and then we're going to another meeting. We had a lot of meetings today. But I wanted to give you a quick couple-minute update on what I've seen today. I stayed strictly with the biomarkers. So a biomarker is essentially a tissue, blood, urine, DNA, RNA, all of the molecules that make up who you are. And they have to be very specific. They're measured. And there are hundreds and hundreds of different types of biomarkers that are running around your body. And essentially, what our rheumatology research is catching up to in the cancer space is how these could affect the way that we're treated. I mean, think about it. How many of you have been on many treatments and they don't work, or they fail, or you gotta keep trying and it takes 3 to 6 months to work, and it's a nightmare. And how would you feel if you were able to go into a rheumatologist and then just suddenly they said, oh, let's do some blood work, or let's do some type of sample of one of your biomarkers or several of your biomarkers at once, so a composite, if you will, so many together. And instead of doing these one-off, just this biomarker or that biomarker, they can do a whole bunch, creating what they call a signature. And your molecular signature was the same as like thousands of others in a subgroup of your diagnosis. So let's say you have Sjogren's syndrome, and you get these tests, and there's several different biomarkers that are tested, different proteins, different types of the biomarkers, like biomarker within a biomarker. There's all of these different levels, right? And when you get your results, out of 1 million people, would say 250,000 of you have this exact same signature. And research has already shown, hypothetically, we're saying in the future here, and research has shown that those people with that same signature either will or will not respond to a certain treatment. So you might hear things like TNF inhibitors. Those are your Enbrel, your Humiras, often first-line treatment for diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, but not everybody responds to those. And there are tests coming out now that could possibly identify if your signature, your unique biomarkers, would or would not respond. Think about how novel that is, or how exciting that is. Because if we could get matched to the right treatment at the right time for our unique molecular needs, then there's a potential of getting into remission, which is something we don't hear very often. So that's what I saw a lot about. I saw 2 different sessions on biomarkers. One was more directed towards patients. It talked a lot about kind of where we were. So you might have heard of things like ANCA, A-N-C-A, or rheumatoid factor. Those are some typical blood markers that even today, for many years, matter of fact, that we have been tested for. There's certain biomarkers in Sjogren's syndrome. I might mess it. I think it's like SSA or an SSB. I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me. Or like myself, if you have spondyloarthritis, some people have the HLA-V27 gene. Those are all things that have been around for a long time. And they can certainly help with diagnosis, but in most cases that is not required to have a diagnosis. But it can help doctors understand if your disease might be worse. So if you have the markers that I mentioned and you're positive, going to be an announcement. Watch. Very loud. I'm on pause. Hold on. Okay, so they know that if you have the HLA-B27 positive, for example, your disease progression might be more severe. If you're RF positive or INCA positive, then your disease might be more severe. So that's kind of where we are right now in the process. But now they're looking at much more detailed, and they were breaking it down. I went to the session. It was on lupus, and they were breaking it down into, what do I have here? Oh, here we go. They were saying, first of all, how our diseases are all heterogeneous, and that just means that they're so unique per person. And with lupus, it can be even more so because there's so many different things that can happen with lupus, from rashes to organ involvement to not even just brain fog. There could be like psychosis that can happen. So there's many things, and they find that it's very hard to find patients that have such similar symptoms are all over the place. So that's why, it's one of the reasons that lupus is one of these diseases to study, because it's so complex. And if it's so complex, then if you find signatures there, then it would be theoretically easier to find them in some of the other diseases. But there is still precision medicine going on in all of our diseases. So don't think that I'm saying that because, oh my gosh, you're gonna have another announcement. Come on now, people. So, oh my goodness. That's a long one. Okay, I'm going to try to talk over them. So, thinking of a heterogeneous.
Hi everybody, this is Deb Constien reporting back my first day here at EULAR, and I see Tiffany's doing her session right over there. So my first day here, the first session that I actually am reporting back on was hard to treat everything. And it was broken out into 3 different parts. It was hard to treat RA, hard to treat lupus, and hard to treat spondyloarthritis. One piece that I found that was really interesting, because I found it kind of funny, that he said there's actually more questions than there are answers at this point. So, which is completely understandable. There was a huge focus on the comorbidities and multi-morbidities. So that means we understand what a comorbidity is, but multi-morbidities is all different ranges of comorbidities. So it was really fascinating to hear all those different pieces. The other section that I'm reporting back on was a piece on, they were abstracts. So they were presenting different pieces, different studies from different areas of interest to RA patients in this particular case. So it was, one was on cardiovascular disease, one was on body composition, so obesity versus being average weight versus being underweight. So there were several sessions on that, so it was really quite interesting to actually see all the different studies and what their results were. So those are the 2 major pieces that I saw today, and we've also been trying to figure out our way around this convention center. There's probably 4 different levels, and it leads you, like certain elevators will get you to certain places in certain halls, but other escalators will lead to a different part. And we just came down here to, I think it's called South Hall 3, and the escalators for going down are over that way, and all the up escalators are that way. So we're definitely walking in circles a bit, trying to find our way around. We have one more meeting tonight with Bristol Squid mess. Sorry, I'm definitely brain fogging at this point. We haven't eaten at all today, and it's close to 6 o'clock p.m. We're having a hard time finding where they're actually providing the food, and lots of water. So I've been drinking lots of water. But yeah. So we have a meeting tonight with I know I'm messing it up. Sorry, but it's BMS. Pharma company, and we also met somebody from Novartis on the fly who reached out to me who wanted a quick meetup. We have a follow-up meeting tomorrow with Novartis, and we started the day with a pharma meeting with UCB. So definitely keeping us on our toes and moving around, but those are what my report backs are for today, day 1. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Eileen Davidson, and I am here in beautiful Milan for EULAR. Thanks to AiArthritis for sending me here. I'm really pleased to be here, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the daily recap that I had today. My focus was on mental health, exercise, fatigue, and comorbidities, as I know those are things that are very, very hot topics to people living with AI diseases. Myself, living with rheumatoid arthritis, I've struggled with my mental health. Fatigue is probably my most difficult symptom to manage, and I have multiple comorbidities. Now, today's golden nuggets of the sessions that I got today for the patients to really understand and kind of take these away. But for the comorbidities, there was the unfortunate disclosure that rheumatic diseases promote more cancer development, but they didn't really go into that. They went more into mental health. And I thought that was really interesting because there was some very, very stark facts about mental health that they told us about. Particularly, women have a higher risk for developing mental health problems if they have an inflammatory arthritis, including 45.6% of those living with RA have a risk for mental health disorders. And of course, we know that RA worsens depression, and depression worsens the chance of remission, and higher disease activity is more prevalent with mental health struggles. Now, what can help? Well, there was a lot of talk on exercise. The sessions that I went to were focused mostly on exercise and comorbidities. Every one of them had a high component about how exercise can help us. Not with just mental health, but reducing comorbidities and fatigue. Fatigue in particular I thought was quite interesting. Exercise improved fatigue by 23 to 31% in patients with RA. And it also improved their overall health. But that looks like 150 minutes per week at a more moderate to intense level. You got to get your heart rate up and you got to sweat. And partaking in about 20 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week of a resistance strength training. So that could be dumbbells, that could be resistance bands, that could be a number of things. And the prevalence of fatigue in people with rheumatoid arthritis, this is a fact that I thought was more, I've heard different numbers before. I've heard 40%, 20%, things like this, but they were looking at it about 40 to 80% of people living with rheumatoid arthritis have a high prevalence of fatigue. And that got me thinking, like, well, I wonder if there's some people who don't even realize that fatigue is part of their disease because their doctors haven't told them about this. This seems to be kind of be more of a more talked about topic lately that I think wasn't so highlighted before. And a lot of rheumatologists aren't bringing this up to patients. So I think that's an incredible number. I do think it's probably higher though. I also think the mental health struggles are higher in people with inflammatory arthritis due to not recognizing it or fear, stigma of wanting to disclose that. There's still the stigma behind mental health problems. And so we're talking about how exercise really helps people, but there are barriers, especially for the older people who want to exercise. They said that younger people are exercising easier and better. They have guidance from apps, but older patients with rheumatic diseases are not exercising as much there's different barriers. They don't understand the apps. So that is a definite area of improvement, how to get people who have rheumatic diseases that are a little bit, past the age of TikTok and whatnot. How do we get them moving? There could be things like they identified some barriers to stopping people from exercise, which was weight, age, and then of course comorbidities. Comorbidities, again, they talked about depression, obesity, hypertension. Those are being very, very common with people with inflammatory arthritis, particularly rheumatoid arthritis. So that's something that needs to be addressed. And how do we stop that? How do we make that better so that people are not so burdened by the comorbidities that come with inflammatory arthritis? And, the unhealthy lifestyle tends to worsen depression and worsens our disease activity. We have a less chance of reaching remission when we don't exercise, or have higher chance of mental health problems. And it also costs us more money to take care of our health, because we've got more doctors, we've got more time off work, and then of course it's costing us more medications and treatments. So it's important to effectively treat mental health and physical health at the very beginning of a diagnosis for better outcomes. That was my main takeaway with the conference. And I'm hoping that this tells somebody, hey, I would like my fatigue 23 to 40% lower. Maybe I need to start exercising. And it's just takes a little bit each day until you get stronger. So tuning out for today, it's 11 p.m. in Milan, and I'm excited to report back tomorrow.